Welcome to West USA Weekly, the podcast, your go-to source for everything real estate in Phoenix, Arizona. We're breaking down market trends, local insights, and the moves that matter most to Valley agents. Interviews, tips, and the latest from one of Arizona's top brokerages, all in one place. Let's dive in.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our Monday morning West USA podcast. Appreciate everybody joining us today. We got a packed house today. Let's jump into lots to get to. Of course, we got Todd Menard here to give us a look at the numbers. Matt Baker's in the house to give us our mortgage minute, and I'm going to share 3 tips to creating social media calls to action. And we may or may not talk about some things not to do. But we'll get into that, Nick.
We may. Yes, we may.
We just may. And, of course, we've got conversations with Claudia. I'm excited about this because we're going to go through all the situations when and how a buyer can get out of a contract.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
All right, as always, if you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to email us at podcast@westusa.com. Let's jump into our announcements. We've got React starting tomorrow. This is our week-long training on pretty much just about all the technology that we have to offer, whether we're wanting to learn about mobile apps and Forewarn, to our websites, to digital marketing, MLS, and so forth. So, as always, all of our classes can be found on your dashboard. Just log in and go to the calendar. Or if you're not with West USA and you want to attend any of our classes, you can just go to westusacalendar.com. So you want to get signed up this week for these. You can pick and choose which one of these classes that you want to attend. So they are here for you. All right, Todd's got a virtual class coming up this Wednesday, 3 hours of fair housing from 9 to 12 p.m., 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So you want to just, again, jump on the dashboard, get to your calendar, and sign up for that. All right. Dude, do you remember this show?
I hate to say it, Mike. I think that was a trick question because I said, yeah, I do.
I did too. This is like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So 3 hours of disclosure lock. This is coming up this Thursday from 1 to 4 p.m. at our Chandler office. So you want to get signed up for that. All right, 7-week training series. What's going? Oh, Mark.
Yeah, Mark Poisson.
Man, these are,
of course. Yep.
These are really, especially if you're new to real estate. These are some great classes. Mark does a top-notch job, and I mean, we've seen a lot of agents attend these classes, and
if you're not hitting your production level, even if you've had your license for a while, this is a great class.
All right, so that'll start February 5th. It'll be at the Chandler Training Room. So for more information, you can reach out to the Chandler office or Mark. There's his email up there. Oh, look at that, mark@setsail.com.
That's it.
Wow. All right. If you're also new to West USA or never attended one of our Monday morning new agent orientations, Nick and I are going to walk you through the ins and the outs of West USA this morning. It is not too late to get signed up. Again, just go to the calendar and click on that and get signed up. And we're going to walk you through all the technologies and all the support and just what you need to know about being a licensed real estate agent at West USA. So with that being said and done, I'm going to turn it over to you, Todd. Let's go over some stats. What's going on in the market?
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Excuse me. Today we're going over the Greater Phoenix Metropolitan Market statistics for the week ending September 2nd. Let's get right into our numbers. 89 days this week closed on market. Our month supply was 5.21. Absorption rate at 19.18. Average list price this past week, $785,708. Average sale price this past week, $615,996. And our list price to sale price retention came in at 97.15. Inventory rose again, 25,173 available properties. Pending is sitting at 4119 and closed units at 3287. Taking a look at new listings, we took 2,462 listings this past week. That's good, down just a little bit, but still above 2,400. Days on market for active is at 92 and for closed at 85. Lower left-hand side, in red are those two markets in price range that reduced this past week ever so slightly, bringing the total inventory from 0 to 600,000 to 67.04%. 600 to 1 million represents 18.67% of the entire MLS, and 1 million plus is 14.29. Taking a look at the spread chart where everybody spread chart, that's a new one. Spread
short.
sheet. There we go. Or shorts or barefoot. Where everybody gets to be the expert. In the center column, you've got 2 years ago, same week. Then to the left of that, you have last year, same week, and then week over week. So 2462, we took 2549 last week. So we're still above 2400. Way over on the left-hand side, you'll see ROT. That stands for rules of thumb. If you roll down there, you'll be able to see where we should be in each of these categories, and should be as a representation of over the last 5 years what has been our historical number. So last year we were at 2309. So 2462 is 150 people, 145 people more in the marketplace than the year ago. And look, 2 years ago in 2104, in 2024 we were at 2104. And so these are good numbers. These are showing that January and February are starting off really, really strong. Active inventory at 25,173. That's 9% more than we had a year ago. So we're sitting at 708 coming soon properties, 18,618 single-family non-distressed, 3,124 new home construction properties, and 24,723 total non-distressed properties in the MLS. Taking a look at pending, as we use listings to identify whether sellers are interested and feel confident about the market, that they can sell their home, they can walk away from their 3% mortgage, they can find a new property, the inventory is such that they don't have a problem finding a property that they're willing and excited about moving to. Those things are good signs, and that's why you have more people in the market, because of those things. Of course, obviously, lower interest rates are that way. 2026 is supposed to also deliver a 5.7% more income. It's the first time income increases are going to outpace housing price increases. Looking at pending is when we look at buyers in the marketplace. The higher the number here, the more people that have engaged, obviously, meeting of the minds of the seller and the buyer, they're in escrow. But this is a good indicator of the number of people in the marketplace time over time. So over last week, we had 200 more people roughly enter into escrow. 3,762 is where we were last year. 2,978 and 24. So if you want to just look at, say, are there more buyers in the marketplace today? There's about, in any particular range, there's about 1,000 more people in the marketplace than 2 years ago, and about 500 more people in escrow at any one time versus last year. So those are good. Again, strong numbers there. So then we look at closed. Closed is, did it make it through escrow and finally close? Obviously, last year was not a good, escrow period. A lot of properties canceled during escrow. Closed, this is January's numbers month to date. So as of right now, these are not washed. I call washed numbers verified numbers. These are not washed. It'll probably take us till this time, Monday next week, to be able to deliver to you the month-end numbers for the month of January. However, 4,829 is where we're at. A year before, in 2025 January, we're at 4,823. So that market's going to come out, might be just pretty much a wash across the board. But if you remember, last year we had a couple of extra hundred closed last year than the year before, so that was good. Taking a look at month supply at 5.21, coming down from the 6.14 number. We're at 4.95 months supply. And again, why do we even track that? Why do we tell you that? And it's because it really is an indicator of whether your negotiations should follow more of a seller's market or follow more of a buyer's market. And in this particular case, we're still in that upper category, 5 over 5, and that's basically saying we are treated as though we're in a seller's market. So we look at the median.
You meant buyer's market.
Buyer's market. Yeah, I like seller's markets better. But yeah, I meant buyer's market. I did, actually, I did that on purpose because I was wondering if you were paying attention. Because last week I finally said, yes, we are in a seller's market. So yes, we are actually in a seller's market. So treat it as though it was a seller's market. 450 is the median sale price at the very bottom of that red box. 454 the week before. That's not as much of a big thing. But if you look at last year at 455, that's the third line number over on the right. Versus, and even 438 the year before, we're pretty stable as far as the average values or the median values of properties in the marketplace. The properties are still in that somewhat of a, not necessarily decline. Even Lawrence Young, NAR, everybody has been basically saying we're not in a full recovery market for 2026. What we are is we've recovered from it declining. So prices may still, because you're in that buyer's market, may still continue to have to be negotiated quite heavily. And the sellers may have to take a little less than they anticipated to make their property go into escrow. So these are some of the things. And so median price, though, tells us that we're not seeing any strong, and we didn't even last year. So last year was the first reset, and now we're in that basically recovery market. Taking a look at list price to sale price retention, the sellers are keeping about 2.9%. Of the list price at the time they accept the offer. So again, ad nauseum possibly, but I want to make sure everybody understands there's two numbers before you write your offer you need to take a look at in the MLS. The first number is your list price to sale price retention in that neighborhood that the property resides that you're putting the offer in on, because that tells you what the temperament of the any and every home that is potentially sold in that marketplace. Did the sellers have to give up a discount off the list price? And that'll tell you what it was. In this particular case, if this was one community, the sellers are averaging a 2.85% discount. So for you not to know that, you might be leaving 2.85% on the table. Now, the other number that's really important is going to be the seller concessions number. And the reason for that is because we've been all hung up about this seller compensation agreement thing. The reality is the buyer has a certain number of costs they're going to have to bring to the table to close. That includes your commission, that includes, closing costs, settlement fees, lending fees, and escrow service fees, obviously. So in that particular situation, if the seller's if they're giving you a 2% negotiation up front on the list price, and they're giving you 3% per se, or 2% or 5% on the back end, and you can identify that by searching the concessions, you now know how to write your offer to have it meet your buyer's needs. And if you don't know that, then give me a call. I'll be happy to walk you through, what that process is. But that's the numbers for this week, Mike.
All right, appreciate it as always. All right, bringing Matt Baker. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good. The market is stable, I guess would be a good word. We've kind of had consistent rates since September, not quite as low as we want. I'm going to talk about an option later, which I think is beneficial, but you can really just see that blue line. The first blue arrow is when Trump talked about buying mortgage bonds, which you kind of improved the market. Green means rates went down. Red means rates got worse. And you can kind of see they just ebbed ever so slightly sideways because they're looking for new clues, right? With the lack of the vision of, well, what's the Fed going to do? And with data dependent. But then if you don't have trust in the data, then where do you lie your head? And that's why you're seeing currencies, you're seeing other, seeing stock market go up, but you're not necessarily seeing much money going into mortgage bonds. And that's, again, if the Trump administration was able to get FHFA to buy mortgage bonds, and that will reduce the spread between the 10-year Treasury and the mortgage rates, you will see an improvement, even though the 10-year Treasury isn't necessarily guiding it. But here's where, kind of the rubber meets the road is the unemployment numbers are coming in a little bit less than the anticipated. Now they climb from 4.1 up to 4.5, 4.6, and then they've come back down. But I have a question to ask everybody, because I feel like this is made me go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the household survey is the survey in which the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, makes a phone call to you at your house, or most don't have home phones anymore, but their cell phone, and ask you, are you still looking for a job? Are you actively looking for a job? And so it is a household survey that's done via phone. And so you're like, whoa, what's the accuracy of that? I'm like, well, how many times do you answer calls you don't recognize? How many calls do you answer that are spam? Is that really the right way in which we should be counting all of our proverbial eggs in a basket on the direction of monetary policy on the Fed's phone call?
But on the flip side, Matt, if I am looking for a job, I would think I'd be answering the phone.
You could, unless you had debt, that you had collectors that were calling you and you didn't want to answer. I mean, there's lots of other factors.
But there's also, in the way that question stands by itself, someone could currently be employed, get the phone call, say, "Are you looking for a job?" And the person's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to better where I'm at."
That's right. Yeah, so job traders versus job stayers. I mean, all the stuff is factored into it. So yet the Fed didn't do anything in the last meeting, as you know, and they're holding steady on, well, because jobs aren't as bad as people think. Well, then you've got this consumer price index, which is inflation, knowing that that's Fed's both mandates. What are they doing? Now, month over month, definitely kind of stayed stable, which people were thinking it was going to continue to rise as it did really through May through September. What's crazy is that, that this stuff is all lagging data, right? So it's all like rear view mirror stuff. And if depending on what side of the equation you're on, tariff has an impact in this number. What is that true dollar or percentage impact? No one really knows. But I think that's the question. And again, if we're going to be hovering in this mid-2 range, are we able to get lower? I think that will help speed up the direction of rates. So then that comes down to, well, what happens if rates come down? Are you ready? And what I mean is if we get more buyers on the market, as you indicated, over year, there's more. But if there's even more, is it going to be easier or harder to go under theory? It'll switch to a seller's market where contingency matters, where all these other determinations matter when you offer. And so there are lots of options out there. And if you haven't learned about it, scan the contact on the bottom, because not the QR code, that's the HELOC I'll talk about in a second. But there's so many options, whether it's not counting the debt against you on your departing residence, whether it's getting bridge money, getting money that you can utilize to sell. So this is a way, because the biggest, I think, headwind for an agent is when you lose that buyer and they're like, I don't like that house, or they lose the house because they're contingent, and then they don't sell their house and they're still looking for the magic house that fell out, that they couldn't win on. So then they don't move. And now you've lost potentially 2 sales. If you can get them to buy before they sell, you then are almost guaranteeing yourself a listing if you do a good job on the buy. So there's an opportunity here. And this is just a highlight of, there's things called guaranteed offers. There's loan payoffs with delayed interest, so you don't have payments for 6 to 12 months on your departing residence. If you're not familiar with all the tools out there on the buy before you sell, like scan the bottom, set up a call. You also have my QR code at the end. And then the last thing on this is Guild just launched our 100% online digital HELOC. That's not a traditional HELOC, meaning you don't have to do tax returns. You don't have to do, you're going to do income verification through your bank accounts. So it's going to be more like a bank statement loan, because you load it all in there. It's all digital. It tells you in a matter of minutes what you qualify for, and you close in less than 5 days.
Wow.
So you can get your money pretty quickly. So if you have interest in that, whether it's yourself or a client who's like, I need to pull some money out to be able to go buy an investment property or to go buy my next property, that is a really cool tool. So scan that. And then, as always, there's my contact card if you can't do the scan on the bottom because of the screen size. But just realize that if you're not knowing about buy before you sell, and you believe rates are going to be lower in the future, and you think there'll be a need for non-contingent buyers that maybe are previously contingent, I think that's a really big opportunity that you need to learn about.
All right, so on the HELOC, and I'm just asking for a friend.
Yep.
Second homes.
Second homes allowed, investment properties allowed. Now, there's just different LTV requirements.
Sure.
Like, you're not going to be able to go to 75, 80% of the value, and that's really where the magic is. You're not going to go 90. You're not going to go to 100.
That's huge, guys.
But it's huge. It's an opportunity.
Especially play when the market shifts and it's time to buy.
And you want to be ready.
You need cash.
Yep.
All right, appreciate it, Matt.
You
Good
got it.
stuff.
Thanks,
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with these types of programs out there, you really do need to connect with Matt, because if you're not familiar with them and your clients aren't hearing about these options, you're doing your clients truly a disservice, because there are just so many things out there. So I definitely scan that QR code and get with Matt and have him sit down and explain it. So you excited now? You ready to go?
It was good information.
So
I love when Matt Baker.
So you know what I do now with those spamming calls now and the spamming texts? I just say, yeah, I'm really interested in learning more. Please schedule time with my personal assistant, Nick Wiedekamp, 602-942-4200. So you're going to start getting a lot of calls.
Is
to
that
the
when
office.
you're spamming or getting
I
spammed?
appreciate
So when I'm getting spammed, I'm just gonna
checking.
I'm gonna deflect it onto you.
My call lists are pretty low nowadays, so I appreciate you helping me out, buddy.
I've actually been joking about
actually
that for
pretty
about a year, and I haven't brought myself to do it yet.
I saw something this weekend where somebody takes the spam caller's number, puts it on Craigslist, and says, let's say Taylor Swift's coming to town, and they'll post and say, I have super low premium Taylor Swift tickets, call me now, and they just eviscerate the person's phone number. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, I like it.
I'm going to do it to you,
I think
actually.
we're as a company, we're not commenting on that.
For sure.
All right, I've got another one, but it's not appropriate.
Yeah, we'll wait for
it's
after.
not part of the family-friendly show. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about social media and just calls to action and how important what calls to action are to your posts, and then kind of get into some of what we are seeing, Nick, in this political environment of just
Opinions?
and so I don't know if you wanted to get into that first or just kind of let the conversation
No, let's go
flow.
through, because I think that this is super important. Social media is not an option anymore. I think 5 years ago we probably were talking about how social media is a cool thing and you can post about food and puppies. This is a marketing essential for your business. If you're not on social media, it's just almost like you're not on and having a website. You need to be on social media. You need to be on multiple social media platforms, and you need to be posting. But if you're posting without a call to action, you're wasting your time. So I think this is a
Tell
fantastic
people
topic.
what I hate to say it, but for some of the listeners, what is a call to
Well,
action?
I'm going to get into it, but I'm just
yeah.
staring at
Okay, I
this.
didn't
It
see
drives
that up
me
there.
nuts. I read this like 3 times this morning with
Typos?
the goal. No typo. I don't understand.
You do the best editing after you go live. But
All right, that's a fact. All right. So good point. What is a call to action? It starts with when I am going to post something regarding real estate. Okay, if I'm just posting a picture of me and my family in Europe or whatever, I'm not trying
in Europe,
Bougie.
like that's normal. In
Yeah,
Europe.
well,
flex.
I don't go to Europe, but I'm just saying, I'm that's the normal people. Oh, love it, have fun, da 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 da. But when we're talking about specifically to trying to generate business, when I'm doing a real estate related post, I'm asking the question: when somebody sees this post and reads the post, what do I want them to do?
Right.
And then including those instructions of what you want them to do in the post, whether it's DM me for more information or call me or so forth. But social media we scroll through stuff so fast and we read people's stuff and we go like, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. So with all the social media noise out there, you're wanting to give your followers a little bit of guidance of exactly what you are wanting them to do. And if you encourage people to follow some sort of call to action, whether it's call you, text you, post your favorite picture of this or whatever the case is, that you're wanting to not only get an engagement, but you're also wanting to get future conversations. And more people will engage if they're encouraged to engage. Otherwise, you're just posting.
Yeah, so this is a really good point, Michael, because here's the thing. When internet first started, it was kind of the person who posted the important information about what another person maybe wanted to do. We'll just call it real estate. So you're posting things about the market, the industry, being a buyer, how to properly, have better engagement buying or better engagement as a seller. The problem was the average agent was giving them the whole bit of information. There was never a reason really for the consumer to contact the agent. They just gave it all. And so, sometimes when you're developing your messages, you want to excite them about wanting to know the information, but you don't give it to them. Instead, you potentially say that for more information, contact me, or here's my number, or call now.
You don't want to
before-
spill all the
Yeah,
secrets.
exactly.
Well, so where you're posting is going to determine your call to action. Each social media platform is going to have a very specific way that it wants you to post. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram are going to be doing it very different. The point is engagement. You want someone to stop scrolling, to Mike's point. You want them to have a reason to slow down and to engage with you, to what Todd was saying. Either that's a like or a comment. So that's what you're trying to accomplish there. if you're posting, you want that post to have engagement. If you're pulling them off the social media, say text me, that's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. But the goal for what you're doing to post is to get the algorithm to go, this person posts things people want to see. I'm going to then organically share it with more people, and that's how your posts start to get more content or more engagement. The other side of this is if someone engages with you on social media, you need to engage back. If they like the post, you need to comment, hey, thanks so much for the like, Mike. I appreciate that. Or if someone, oh my goodness, if they actually comment on the post and you don't respond and you're ghosting that comment, yeah, you're wasting your time. So you do need to, you take the Gary Vee approach, personally respond to everybody who's engaging with you on social media.
Yeah, and let's just set the record. Whenever I'm doing subject matter on social media, we're talking about Facebook.
And that's fine. And that's the demographic that you're on. And Facebook's perfectly fine. It's going to be an older demographic on Facebook, but that's who's buying homes.
I'm not sure that was a compliment.
No, but there's also some value in that, because if you look at the different social medias, they each have a different audience.
Yeah.
And so, if you now look at who the audience is that's buying homes, you might not want to be putting more of your energy into those few categories that have such a smaller percentage of the market share. You might want to be putting it into the places where the people that are buying the most real estate are going.
All right. So then, with that being said, so I have a two-prong approach. I 100% agree with you, Nick. If somebody especially is commenting on one of your posts, you need to like the post, respond to the post, and so forth. But in addition to that, I then will take that if somebody has shown interest, like I do a real estate post and somebody has something really cool to say, or I think that there might be an in there, I want to acknowledge it so that everybody sees that I'm responsive. But then I'm gonna take that conversation and I'm gonna go into the direct messaging, because I'll do a lot of just direct messaging with people who are on my social media or liking and commenting on some of my posts and so forth, because now what this allows me to do is it allows me to deepen the conversation without everybody else seeing it, feeling awkward about it, and so forth. And a lot of times I'm able to, through direct messaging, set appointments and set phone calls off of just one of my posts. Somebody comments on it, and then I comment back, and then I'm direct messaging them.
So the ultimate objective is you want to have an appointment set. So you're out there, you have your post, it generated a DM, and I think that's what you're seeing mostly. Sales funnels are going away. As soon as somebody clicks on a funnel, they're still trying to sell them on the internet. But the problem is that the moment you start seeing more and more videos, you go from one video to another one, and it's a whole page worth of trying to convince you to make that next move. You don't want to be playing in that world. But on the other hand, if you're not pushing that person, some of them have, a white paper, a digital white paper that they want you to download. So DM me for the white paper, or something like that. At least it gives that next thing. But in real estate, Michael, you hit it right in the head. It is such a personal, private matter that you don't want to be the big shot engaging on the post. What you want to do is have that direct conversation and make them feel confident and comfortable that they can have that conversation with you.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to this section, I think is you nailed it, is if I'm going to comment back and then send the DM, I'm going to make sure that I include in my comment to that person, hey, thanks so much for the comment. I'm sending you a DM, or check your DMs. You want to tell them that, especially when it comes to Facebook. Each social media is going to be a little bit different, but the inbox in a social media platform is kind of a sticky wicket. You really never know where you're going to land in someone's inbox. There's like 4 different categories you can land in. So telling them they're going to be in the DM gives them that ability to go, oh, okay, cool, I need to check my messages and look for the message from Mike.
All right. I'm going to do the last point really quick, and then we'll kind of get into something else, Nick. But I was thinking about what are some really strong calls to action to end posts on. And I'm like, well, let me just ask good old chat.
Yeah.
So this was my prompt. I'm a real estate agent in Arizona. Provide me with engaging calls to action for social media posts. That's just hop on ChatGPT. That's all you got to do. And it was the list was incredibly long, but a lot of great ideas. The kind of calls to action that we're not looking for really are, I don't know, man. This political climate is driving me nuts. I tell people 3 things. I tell agents, first of all, do you like money? Okay, and if the answer is yes, then let's try not to alienate 50% of your potential consumer base.
Right.
Number two, you're not going to change anyone's minds on anything. I mean,
right.
people are set in their ways. And does anyone really care?
Yeah.
Nobody cares what I think politically or whatever the case is. People have already formed their opinions. And I remember the happy days when Facebook was just it was a good place to be, where people just, updated each other about their families and what they were doing and so forth. And we're just seeing a lot of people it's hurting their businesses, Nick.
I mean, the good old days when Twitter was the negative place to be and everybody just could hate on Twitter. Now, unfortunately, it's kind of run rampant. So quickly, I want to tie this together with one final thing on this. Calls to action for your business doesn't simply need to and really shouldn't be only about real estate. You need to make yourself a human being, make yourself a person. Your consumers that are following you on social media aren't doing it because you're this great real estate agent. They do it because they like you and they trust you. They want to work with someone they trust that's a human being. So commenting about, things that you're doing in your personal life is fine. If you want to protect your family and not post about them, that's fine. If you go for runs or walks or you cook, whatever your hobby is, you want to splash that in there, and you also want to include that for a call to action. That is important to do. Now, everything currently, and this might be a polarizing comment just because everything is a political comment in 2026. A lot of what we post out in the world is being misconstrued, misunderstood, and the perception is that of the reader, not the poster. And you need to remember that whatever you're saying in your brain and however you think you're conveying it to the world, you've lost that as soon as you hit post. Everyone who reads it is going to be reading it in their own perception, their tonality, their sarcasm, their humor. So being very cautious of that when you're posting on social media is very important. The other thing you need to remember, just because you have 30 followers, 200 followers, 5,000 followers, those are not the only people seeing what you are posting.
Good point.
So as you are trying to grow your business, and that's what we're doing if we're posting about being a real estate agent, right? If you're including on your social media that you are a realtor and you can help people buy and sell, you are now crossing the streams and including your business on your personal page. Whether you wanted to or not, you've done it. So now you need to make sure, just like every other business does, what they're posting and what they're saying aligns with those that are following them and everybody who's not. So now you're in this very thin line, and everything you post could potentially cause frustration. So if you choose to use your social platform, and we can't speak to it, if that's what you want to do, God bless. If you choose to use your social platform to spout your opinions on the current state of the economy, on the current state of the political landscape, on what's happening in the world, if you use that platform, understand you are asking people to respond to you. Talk about a call to action.
Yeah.
If you want people to engage with you, misspell a word on your post. If you want people to engage with you, put some crazy polarized comment out there, and you're going to ask for it, and you're going to get it, good or bad. And so I just want to warn everybody, and I want to open it up, and I've been kind of on my bully pulpit here, but it's a very powerful tool that every single person in the world has for free with no benchmark of entry. There's no test. There's no anything. Do you know how to use a computer? You get access to post in front of millions of people.
Yeah, and I would also say I would like. I think that the Department of Real Estate should have a required class every 2 years. We need to take a class on what is the First Amendment, because yes, there's a lot of confusion of freedom of speech. The First Amendment protects you from the government telling you that you can't say this and you can't do that.
Their opinion, yep.
It doesn't mean that you can't still have consequences for employers or whatever the case. So I just throw that out there.
Just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah, and 100%. I mean, there's a closed groups on social media. If people post and they break the rule of a closed group, you get booted. You don't get protection of free speech.
Yeah, and if you want to look at more social media how-tos in React Day 4 on Thursday, we're going to have social media by the Fairway Mortgage is going to be on talking about social media. So
sure.
there's some good ins there.
Thanks, everybody.
All righty. Well, that's the voice of Claudia Ewan,
Yes, it
our master coach and our managing broker. Welcome. So we had a conversation last month. I said I'd like to just kind of go through where a lot of agents just think that the only way and the only time their buyer can get out of the contract is during that 10-day inspection period and the Binzer process. Not necessarily the case, and the contract outlines a lot of different timetables, a lot of things that need to get done, and failure to do so, or the buyer has the ability to disapprove certain things. So I wanted to walk us through it, and I'm going to hand you this, but I wanted to just, before we get going on getting out of contracts, so here's a scenario. I have this buyer.
Thank you for your scenarios, by the way. You always have the greatest scenarios. So
We have to cut that.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I have a buyer. We go take a look at a home, falls in love with it. We make an offer, and we just got outbidded by another buyer. So that contract, other buyers under contract. So then my buyer finds another house. We go through the process. We're under contract. 3 days prior to the close of escrow, house A, for some reason, falls out of contract. Now, there's two scenarios. One, what do I do if my buyer calls me and says, I want to go back after that house? Or maybe, because I typically 3-4 days prior to, I turn off the subscription in the MLS. But what if I'm aware, what if the agent calls me and says, hey, your buyer's still interested, it's back on the market. And I know house B, we're 3 days prior to close of escrow. Sure. Am I required, or should I even say anything to my buyer? And I'm sure we get this situation quite a bit because I could tell by Todd's face.
Yeah. So simple answer, what's best for your client? Fiduciary. You owe them that responsibility of honesty. I would always bring it up. You don't want them to close escrow and then find out it was on the market and say, hey, you didn't let me know. Yes, there could be outs for them. They could speak to legal counsel. They could do something. If that is their dream house, that is the one they want. But there's a lot of things to look at, not just the brick and mortar of the house, right? The transaction. Can they recreate that deal? Did they get a really good deal on that house? Is it worth it going to the other one? So there's a lot to think about, not only the repercussions, because there will be repercussions. It's not just about the earnest money. And that's why they need to speak to legal counsel, especially at that point. I mean, any point in the game, there's a flag on the play. You want to make sure that you check it out. But at that very last moment, I mean, it does happen. I mean, if they fall in love with the house, I get it. But there's a way out, and that's going to involve legal counsel. It's no longer as easy as black and white print.
Yeah, and remember that we used to only have a fiduciary duty to clients. Now we have a contractual duty to buyers. So it changes the game totally. Fiduciary duty was 2 years of limitations. Contract law, 6 years of limitations. So, in essence, Mike, just in quick, I would say, yes, tell your client. However, in that same breath, and follow it up in an email so that you have documented the conversation, that they need to seek a real estate attorney to understand their risks of trying to get out of this deal. Because Claudia, you made it right. It's not about the earnest money. They're not really walking away from earnest money. Look at the section breach in the back of the contract. It says that the purpose for earnest money is because damages would be difficult for a seller to fix. The seller may, at the seller's sole interest, accept the earnest money as a sole thing. The seller's not going to do that. If you harm them way down at the end of the contract and they can't go to their next house and there's a domino and a loss of earnest money on that deal and so forth, yeah, there's going to be a lot of damages in that earnest money.
Button, down arrow button.
Yeah, they're not going to take it.
Unless Nick messed up the... Okay, the second caveat to that question is, am I required to know about it? What if, I don't monitor all my searches, and I'm not monitoring, a week prior to close of escrow. I'm not going in the MLS and taking a look at other houses we made offers on to find out. So what if close escrow, he goes, hey, well, this house came back on the market 3 days ago. And I'm like, well, I didn't know.
No, of course not. If your client tells you, "Hey, I need you to keep an eye on this," that's a client instruction. But no, you can't know what's happening in the market at every second. Like it could go back on the market the minute that it's going to record the new one. You can't know that. So
Okay.
no.
Good call.
Also, remember the client went under contract. They did what was necessary to go through all the steps to go under contract on whatever home they're on now.
Right. And that's where I'm saying that buyer client needs to really gauge and wage what is going on. It's not as simple as, oh, I just want this one now. Okay, no, we'll think about every step we went through. Are you willing to do that again? And yada, yada with legal counsel. So there are some other contingencies in the contract I did not include on here, which is your buyer contingency addendum, right? That's a way to get out. There's also the short sale addendum, which is another contingency. It's contingent upon that short sale approval. And then you have things like executed backup offer. So those, you can always fall out of those with notice, right? But the most popular by far is going to be buyer due diligence. That first 10 days or whatever you put on line 213 of the purchase contract, which, by the way, guys, hot off the presses, look in transaction desk, AAR forms, whatever, new version today. Well, February 1st.
Another one?
Minor change. I was going to just talk to it real quick. It's minor change. You could say it didn't even warrant it, but they want to put it in here. So the 7D, the small claims, I can't read, small claims division, it went up to 5,000. It used to be 35. So small claims up to 5,000. And you're going to notice your very last page, signature page of the contract and the lease agreement, all of the contracts, the vacant land contract, page 10 or the last page now states, instead of broker on behalf of buyer or broker on behalf of seller, it now reads, broker represents buyer and will receive compensation from the transaction.
Wow. All right.
It's not saying who, right? It's not saying who's paying it, but they're getting compensation from the transaction. So that's new. Just wanted to point that out for you guys. So due diligence, yes. If you leave it boilerplate, 10 days. Now, we've been asked this before, especially from listing agents just waiting for that vendor to come through, and it doesn't come through. And it's like, they only have 10 days, right? Like, yeah, they have 10 days. Well, what if they don't respond? What if they don't send me something? Well, there you go. I got everything from the purchase contract, guys. I read through it, highlighted. All the answers are there. You know, you say there's a form for that? Yeah, everything is in the contracts. That buyer advisory, if you've ever read through it, has everything you're ever going to need to know. So when you call in and ask, what can they cancel for? Maybe they found another property, right? It's never going to be advised to have, you cannot have more than one escrow open. That's not good practice.
I think what you're saying, and ultimately to the agent, the buyer's agent in that case, is it's not about the property or the premises or the surrounding areas. It could be anything. Like Mike's point, a property that they preferred just came back on the market. They can use any reason whatsoever, to make their decision to cancel.
Right, but disapproved items.
You're talking about during the inspection period, right?
Yeah, I'm just
During the
yeah,
inspection,
that's what we're talking about right
During
now.
inspection period, but it has to be listed on the BINSR page 1.
Correct.
You have to list the disapproved items. Failure to do so means you're continuing forward without asking for any repairs.
And failure to put the reason on the BINSR, it means you're putting your buyer in a situation where they're walking away from their earnest money.
It must be noted. It must be listed there. So that's important to look at. The unfulfilled loan contingency is the second. It's again, it does happen. You know, buyers' situations change or they look further in and now they cannot qualify. They need a loan denial from their lender, and we need the unfulfilled loan contingency addendum that we would add. And then you would need your title company's proof of earnest deposit refund or disbursement. Where did that money go to? We can't cancel out the file and call it officially done or dead in the water unless we have that from title company.
Right. Okay. And then on the unfilled loan contingency, we've talked about this several times. When your buyer receives the unfilled loan contingency from the lender, and you submit it to the seller, basically saying we're canceling the contract because our buyer cannot get the loan, you are not required, and I would advise you to never share with the seller why they were denied the loan. You're not required. All you're required to do is provide the documentation. Now, there are some agents, and there's a temptation, like going back to my initial scenario where they talk their lender into doing this, but they really can get a loan, but they're using this as a way out. How dangerous is that?
What are you looking for, Todd?
Well, the point is under the unfulfilled loan contingency.
You got to get closer to the mic.
Under the thank you. I'm new to
You're a
this.
rookie.
That it does say that there's I can't see it on here, but it's that they do have to provide a reason for the unfulfilled loan contingency also.
Well,
that's part of the contract. It's in the contract itself.
I can't read.
Oh, let's move on because
have my
I've never heard.
But yeah,
I've never
so
heard
if you
that.
Before we
So-
get too far,
Yeah.
Claudia had mentioned a new document that had been updated by AAR. That document is now in transaction desk, right, Claudia?
Yes, sir. I checked this morning.
If I have an open escrow, I have active contracts. I don't need to update those documents with this new one. I just
No.
need to use it moving forward, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Going
you.
forward. Yeah, do not go back retrograde. It's
The
going
answer's
forward.
there also in the very last line, but it says optional,
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
not
so
required.
as we go on, appraisal contingency. Now this does happen. In some cases, it's a lot more stringent than others. VA and FHA are going to be a little bit harder to tackle that appraisal and appeal that because they have specific time frames and it stays with the record of the house longer. So for VA, it's called Tidewater. And if you don't know what that is, reach out to your lenders. Get a good info session, guys. We should know this information. But if the appraisal comes in short, yes, there's a shortfall on the additional clause addendum where if a buyer really wants this house, they're willing to go $5,000, right? If it falls short, they're willing to put $5,000 into it. You can do that kind of thing, but the client needs to make sure that again they've looked at all of the options, right? Make sure that that is what they want to do. Because you don't want them coming back after close of
Right.
escrow saying, oh, this is not the scenario that I wanted. This isn't the transaction I wanted to agree to. So appraisal contingency is there. It can be used on cash as well. Additional clause addendum has a nice little paragraph in there that it can be subject to appraisal. So that's something to look at. A lot of people don't know and don't even look into the title commitment, the CC&Rs. If your client, and it happened early on in my career, I sold a home with an RV gate. Perfectly happy. Then their parents came down for 6 months. They were going to park their RV there. It was great. Little did I know that HOA does not allow RV parking. So it's really not an RV gate. It's the size of the gate is big enough for an RV, but not allowed to park there. So that was a huge debacle. We figured it out. I did pay for 6 months of RV storage for them because I did not know the difference. I did not point it out. Hey guys, your CC&Rs. I sold
good
them
one.
what I thought was an RV gate and RV parking. I didn't pay attention. So ever since then, I have a grudge against some of those new home builders. Why do you say RV gate?
And the important part about
MLS
this,
does too.
about these items and these things that I really wanted to highlight is the appraisal contingency or receiving the CC&Rs from the title company can happen after the inspection period. So that's my point. Just because the inspection period has come and gone, well, I've had it on day 11, day 12. My buyer has had a change of heart. Now I'm going back and going, okay, did we get the appraisal yet? Did we get our title commitment and title insurance and looking at dates because they've got 5 days from receipt of these documents.
From
Any
receipt.
change, yep.
And that brings us into the next one, which is I think one of the most not popular, but it comes up a lot more, I think, than the loan contingency. So if you're past your due diligence, if you're a listing agent, you get that spuds out when? Within 3 days. 3 days of contract. That's not just the number we put in the contract. That's there because the buyer has 5 days from review of that spuds to present any disapproved items, any disapproved terms that they don't agree to. What if it had a previous leak in the property? It's no longer active, but they're highly sensitive to mold or growth or humidity, or they're very worrisome. A lot of people from the East Coast come here. They hear mold, they're out. They don't want to even know about it because it's a much bigger problem up there. So you have to be really, really careful that you, as a listing agent, get that spuds out and the loss claims history out with that early time period, 3 days. If not, you're extending that questionable period, that due diligence period where they can back out. If you wait and don't give them the spuds until day 10 of your inspection, guess what? They have 5 more days
Just for that document.
But
just for that document. Yeah.
unless on day 11 they send the Binzer. right? Because once they send the Binzer, I would assume that the spuds issue is over.
The Binzer should be on day 10. It can't be day 11.
No, what I'm saying is, if I don't get the spuds until day 10, and I know that I've now got a 15-day inspection period because I've just received the spuds, but I send the Binzer on day 11, then it's over. I'm done. Because you said if the inspection period, if I don't get the spuds, right, the spuds can extend the inspection period.
Well, no, the inspection period ends once that Binzer gets turned in or the 10th day.
Right.
Like that's the due diligence.
Okay,
for
then what
inspection.
happens when I get the spuds on day
You
10?
could notice of cancellation.
There's a section also. There's two of them. They're both called changes. One's under the lender section, which any changes to the lenders to anything doing with your loan that's going to affect the seller's costs or your ability to close, you have to get permission from the seller, or sometimes you can just notice them. But there's another changes in the contract which just deals with absolutely any information that you were not made privy to until, it might be before or after the inspection period. But since we're talking about after the inspection period today, you have 5 days.
Well, I
from
know what
receipt
I'm
on
asking,
that
so we'll
one
talk about
document.
afterwards.
Look at line 156.
Yeah.
156 answers your question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. For the SPDS.
For the SPDS. So at 5 days after
Same
receipt
thing
of the
with
spuds,
insurance
whichever is later.
Okay.
You're just recommending that all of the things that are in the contract that have a date in which the seller's supposed to perform and getting it to the buyer, you get that no later than 5 days, in the inspection period, because then that means
It's going to extend it.
that it's not going to.
It won't
Yeah,
extend
yeah.
your buyer
Right.
due diligence per inspection, but they still have the right, those 5 days from receipt of those documents.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Same with the affidavit of disclosure. Doesn't happen often, but that is also something that needs to be turned in, and the buyer can cancel on that. So that's just another one of the not outs, but things that a buyer needs to consider. Because again, this is their investment, right?
Yep.
We're dealing with people's hard-earned money and stuff. So risk of loss, that's always going to be one. It is up to the estates and the heirs to continue forward if they're going to. Never had it happen where it was forced to happen. If somebody wanted out, they can. But again, that is the case where you're going to seek legal counsel to make sure. There's a lot of questions that go on when something happens like that. And it could be risk of loss of property. And I'm talking also like the estates and the actual buyers and sellers. It does happen. I had a client at the closing table signing documents. He started having heart pain. We had to stop the signing, and it was, thank goodness, he was fine. But those things do happen. So again, terms of acceptance, if you don't get something signed and accepted within that time frame, is that contract alive? Is that offer still live?
No.
It's actually withdrawn.
Right. You can account for that if they missed it by a couple, overnight. They didn't get it to you till the next morning. You can counter back and extend that time frame, right? But look at the contract. So again, if you read through, you're going to find a lot of your answers. I highly encourage, if you have buyers, even if you don't have buyers and you haven't, read through that buyer advisory line by line. The purchase contract, that first page that everyone just skips over or throws out or doesn't even print, very important. Have your clients look at it and check mark off so they're aware, we have to look at a preliminary title report. Mm-hmm. We have to know what's going to be needed to transfer title. Yeah, you have to know. Right? So make sure you're doing those checks and balances. Make sure you're not the only source. You want to provide the source. The source is our contract. So make sure whenever you are dealing with contracts, I like to quote the contract per line so-and-so of the contract and then go on from there. A lot of people will ask me, what do I actually use to give notice of cancellation or whatnot? You're going to use a notice disclosure. So if you find that one of the parties is non-compliant, right? We haven't received spuds. We're past our time period. You can cure for that. Cure is to resolve and to acknowledge the noncompliance. And then after that 3 days of the cure, you can send a notice disclosure with cancellation. There has to be a step process. Mm-hmm. It's not just, I'm going to send you an email, I'm canceling. That's not how you cancel. You have to do it per the contract.
I'm finding, so I had a situation, and I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on whether this is a good strategy or not.
These they don't scare me. I feel like, not that you trigger me, but I'm waiting now. I'm very, very anxious. Let's see what goes on.
Okay, so I recently had one, and it was over the holidays. It was over Christmas and New Year, so it just time gets away from you sometimes, right? And so I'm representing the buyer, and we do our initial, take a look at the property. It was, long story short, we didn't actually, because he was a GC, so we didn't do an inspection. He wanted to just do it himself because it was a flip. It was going to be a rehab, a flip.
Sure.
And so, during the HOA process of getting the documents, the HOA disclosure basically just stated that all homes that have not been painted since 2001 need to be painted, the exterior. And I'm thinking, well, I don't remember how the quality of the paint job. And so the seller just said, oh yeah, I asked for documentation. Yeah, I'm getting it to you. So now I'm like 2-3 days prior to close of escrow. I'm like, I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble. So I actually drove down there and I'm like, this house was not painted in the last 5 years. So I took it upon myself. I called the HOA and said, do you have any records of any applications? And they said, no, your buyer is going to have to paint this house. And I said, send me documentation ASAP. And they sent me the documentation. So I used that as a disapproved item to renegotiate.
Sure.
That information fell under the 5-day change under changes in the contract because it was so late. And the seller did, the buyer did at that particular point. They got new information that was a requirement that was not discussed during the negotiating period of the contract. As a result, the buyer has an opportunity to walk away or potentially sit down. That's what they have the ability to do, is walk away. But most sellers at that late stage of the game aren't going to want to walk away. They usually will.
So then as a buyer's agent, should we maybe, especially if it's in question, just call the HOA and ask them to do a visual inspection of the property?
If it's important to the client, yes. So the client should be calling their future HOA. They can do that. They can call. I highly encourage that buyer. It's called buyer due diligence for a reason. That buyer should exert some energy, some interest into what's going on with their new HOA. So they can definitely call and get that information. You will get the HOA disclosure provides any and all violations or things that need to happen. If it's stated on there that the property is in violation because it has not been painted, which they do every 10 years, then that's something that, again, has been now brought to light and has to be negotiated, figured out between the two parties. Who's responsible? Ultimately, it still is the seller's home.
All right. And the reason I bring this up, because here's the other situation.
Of course. There's always a caveat.
No, I mean a different transaction.
Oh.
So, and this is why I'm like, I think I'm just going to start having the buyers call the HOA during the inspection period. So, close of escrow. The close of escrow, buyers are signing at the same time the HOA is doing a visual inspection. Okay, there's no way to know that this is going on. There's been nothing in the HOA disclosures of any items that the HOA wants fixed or anything like that. HOA disclosures, everything's good. But then HOA catches wind that, hey, we're going to have a new end user on this, and they go out and cite exterior paint,
Missing landscaping.
Landscaping that needed to be replaced. I mean, we're talking about some big ticket items here.
Sure.
And the buyer is like, there was no way to know because it literally was going on while the buyer was signing. So for me, I'm like, okay, if during the inspection period, just call the HOA and say, do a drive-by.
Sure. Yep. And see, the thing is, guys, so the buyer has already had an opportunity to look at the HOA rules and regs. So they know that that is going to be a requirement to keep up their home, to not, to get things approved. They know that they're walking into an HOA that has rules and regs. Mm-hmm. So if it happens the minute after they sign or the minute after it records, they're aware of that. Now, could that still be negotiated? Possibly they could still talk to the other side because it does land, okay, well, they should have known this, but they didn't do a drive-by. So yes, you could probably still negotiate something between the two parties or have the seller buyer hash it out after the fact in small claims if they want to. But that is something that hopefully it doesn't happen, and hopefully they do some homework and drive around or make the calls, because again, that's buyer due diligence. Very important.
All righty. I think you have it. All right.
There you go. That's the cure part. Seek legal counsel.
All right. We're the
Catch-all. little
pauses of
Yeah.
getting my hands on the keyboard. All right, Claudia. Really, really, really good stuff.
was
I love
fun.
this stuff.
Yeah,
So this is
thank you,
great.
guys.
Yep.
All right. Well, we leave everybody with the quote of the day. Your expertise is your edge. Own it. Go out. Go home.